February 14th, 1974, 11:47 p.m. The Troubadour Hotel, West Hollywood. Room 1205. John Lennon sits on the edge of an unmade bed, staring at a small black recording device no bigger than a cigarette pack. The device has been running for 6 hours, 23 minutes, capturing every word, every silence, every breath between him and the woman he thought he loved. The woman he believed had saved him from his marriage, from his band, from himself. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like it. Yoko Ono stands by the window, her back to him, watching car lights move through the canyon below. She has not turned around since he found the device taped beneath their bedside table, has not spoken since he played back the last 47 recordings, months of their most private conversations, their fights about Paul, their plans to destroy what remained of the Beatles, their discussions about which government agencies were offering the best deals for information. The room smells of cigarettes and betrayal. Room service trays sit untouched on the desk, expensive wine gone warm in crystal glasses. The thick hotel carpet muffles sound, but John can hear his own heartbeat, can hear the quiet mechanical whir of the device still running, still capturing this moment of discovery. He reaches for the recorder, then stops. His hand hovers over the stop button. Part of him wants to know who will hear this conversation, wants to understand how long this particular performance has been running. Part of him already knows. How long, he asks. Yoko's shoulders tense, but she does not turn around. Through the window, Los Angeles spreads out like scattered diamonds. The city where John came to escape his life, only to discover his life had followed him, documented him, betrayed him. How long have you been recording us? Still nothing. John stands, walks to the bathroom, checks behind the mirror, inside the medicine cabinet, runs his fingers along the edges of picture frames. He finds 3 more devices. Tiny, expensive government issue. His hands shake as he places them on the bedside table next to the first one for small black boxes that represent months of intimate surveillance. Since the beginning, he asks. Since New York? Now she turns. Her face is composed, almost serene. The expression she wears during her art performances, the mask that suggests she is somewhere else entirely, participating in experiences too sophisticated for ordinary comprehension. John, she says, her voice soft, reasonable. You don't understand the complexity of the situation. The situation. He repeats the words slowly. Is that what this is? A situation? She moves away from the window, sits in the chair across from the bed. Her movements are careful, deliberate, as if she is aware that every gesture is being recorded, as if she has been aware of recording devices for so long that performing for them has become natural. The government needed information about your activities, she says. Your political associations, the peace movement funding, your contact with radical groups. My contact with radical groups. John laughs, but it comes out hollow, broken. You mean my contact with people who don't want children burned alive in Vietnam? Your contact with people the government considers threats to national security. John picks up one of the recording devices, turns it over in his palm. It is warm, has been running continuously, capturing their breathing, their silences, the sound of his world disintegrating. How much do they pay you? It wasn't about money. How much? John, please try to understand. How much? His voice is louder now, echoing off the hotel room walls, feeding into the 4 devices, creating a permanent record of his humiliation. Yoko is quiet for a long moment. Outside, a police siren wails through the canyon, the sound rising and falling, moving away from them, towards some other crisis, some other broken life. $50,000, she says finally, deposited monthly into a Swiss account. John sets the device back on the table, very carefully, as if it might explode. $50,000 monthly. More than most people make in 2 years. Enough to fund her art installations, her experimental films, her performances that critics call groundbreaking and audiences call incomprehensible. For how long? Since October 1968, the month they met. The month John left Cynthia, left Julian, left his marriage for what he believed was love. He calculates quickly, 76 months, $3,800,000. Enough money to buy several houses, several lives, several truths. The whole thing was a job, he says. It is not a question. Not the whole thing. The art gallery, the exhibitions, meeting me, all of it. The feelings were real, John. What happened between us? The music we made together. The music we made together. He interrupts her, his voice getting quieter, more dangerous. You mean the experimental albums nobody bought? The avant-garde recordings that destroy my reputation? The noise we called art while you gathered intelligence on my friends, my plans, my private thoughts. She stands, approaches the bed, but stops when she sees his face. In the lamplight, John looks older than his 33 years. Looks like a man who has discovered that everything he believed about his life was performance, script, carefully orchestrated theater. They needed to know about your deportation legal strategies, she says. Your immigration lawyers, the peace activists you were funding, the anti-war organizations that were using your money and your platform. Using my money. John's voice is barely a whisper now. Like you were using my money. Like you were using my fame. Like you were using my bed to gather information for Richard Nixon's administration. It wasn't personal. The words hang in the air between them like smoke. John stares at her, at this woman he has shared bed and breakfast with for 6 years. This woman he left his son for. This woman he thought understood his music, his politics, his desperate need to matter beyond entertainment. Not personal, he repeats. Sleeping with me wasn't personal. Recording my dreams wasn't personal. Learning my fears, my hopes, my childhood trauma, my guilt about Julian, none of that was personal. John, answer me. He stands now, walks toward her, and she backs against the window. Was any of it personal? Yoko looks directly at him for the first time since he found the devices. Her eyes are dark, unreadable, the eyes of someone who has been playing a role for so long she may have forgotten what exists beneath the performance. The first 2 years were entirely professional, she says. The assignment was to get close to you, document your political activities, and report on your influence within the anti-war movement. And after the first 2 years, things became complicated. Complicated how? I started to care about you, but you kept recording. Yes. You kept reporting. Yes. You kept taking the money. Yes. John walks back to the bed, sits heavily. The mattress creaks under his weight, and the sound feeds into the recording devices, becomes part of the permanent record of this conversation. What kind of things did you report? Names of people you met with, amounts of money you donated, plans for concerts and rallies, your legal strategy for fighting deportation. My legal strategy. John remembers the private meetings with immigration lawyers, the confidential discussions about moving to Canada, the secret plans to establish residency elsewhere if the U.S. government succeeded in deporting him. Conversations he had only with Yoko, conversations he thought were protected by love and trust. You gave them our legal strategy. I gave them information that was considered relevant to national security. Our bedroom conversations about fleeing the country were relevant to national security. Your ability to evade deportation was relevant to national security. John stands again, begins pacing the small room. He stops at the mirror, looks at his reflection. The man staring back looks unfamiliar. Older, hollowed out, like someone who's just learned that his entire adult life has been a lie designed by intelligence professional. What about Paul? He asks. What about Paul? Did you report on my conversations about Paul? My guilt about the breakup? My nightmares about losing the band? Emotional intelligence was part of the brief. Emotional intelligence. John's voice is getting louder again. You documented my emotional breakdown. You reported on my psychological vulnerability. You turned my grief about losing my best friend into intelligence data. They needed to understand your mental state, your decision-making capacity, your potential for making irrational choices that could affect national security. John stops pacing, stares at her. My potential for making irrational choices. Like what? Like funding radical organizations. Like encouraging young people to resist military service. Like using your platform to undermine government policy. Like singing songs about peace. Like using music as political warfare. The accusation sits between them like a third person in the room. John thinks about the songs he has written during their relationship. The lyrics that called for ending war, for questioning authority, for imagining different ways to organize society. Songs he thought were artistic expression, but which someone, somewhere, classified as weapons. Who else was involved? I can't tell you that. Who else was recording me? John, please understand. Who else? He is shouting now, his voice cracking with exhaustion and rage. Who else in my life was paid to spy on me? Yoko walks back to the chair, sits down slowly. She reaches in her purse, pulls out a cigarette, lights it with shaking hands. The flame illuminates her face for a moment, and John sees something he has never seen before. Fear. May pang. she says quietly. John feels his knees go weak. He grabs the edge of the bed for support. Mei Peng, his girlfriend for the past year and a half. The woman who helped him through his separation from Yoko, who nursed him through his drinking, who made him feel human again after months of psychological warfare in New York. Mei is an agent. Mei was recruited after you started seeing her. Jesus Christ. John sits back down, puts his head in his hands. How many people in my life are paid by the government? I don't know the full scope of the operation. Guess. Most of the people close to you. Most of the people who have access to your private conversations. John thinks about his assistant, his driver, his recording engineers, his lawyers. He thinks about dinner parties where he discussed his political plans, recording sessions where he revealed his creative process, intimate conversations about his childhood, his dreams, his fear of death. For how long has this been happening? Since 1969. 5 years. 5 years of every private moment being documented, analyzed, reported to men in Washington who view his music as a threat to be neutralized rather than art to be protected. And you knew this whole time. I knew about my part of it, but you suspected the rest. Yes, and you never warned me. I couldn't. You couldn't. John looks at her directly. Because warning me would have violated your contract with the people who were paying you to spy on me. Because warning you would have put both of us in danger. Danger from whom? From people who have the power to make us disappear. The words hang in the air like a threat. John knows she is not exaggerating. He has heard the stories, read the reports, met the activists who have been found dead in their cars, in their homes, in hotel rooms not unlike this one. What happens now? He asks. Now you know. What happens to us? There is no us, John. There never was in U.S. There was you, and there was an operation designed to monitor and control you. But you said you started to care about me. I did. So some of it was real. Some of it was real. How much? I don't know. Estimate. Maybe 30%. 30% of the last 6 years were real. Maybe less. Maybe less. John stands, walks to the window, looks out at the city. Somewhere down there in government offices and hotel rooms and private clubs, people are listening to recordings of his most intimate moments. People are reading transcripts of his conversations with his son, his dreams about his dead mother, his confessions about his fears and failures. Were you recording that night in Montreal? He asks. When we recorded, Give Peace a Chance. Yes. So even that real moment was documented. Yes. But your response was genuine. I think so. You think so. Or you know so. I know so. John walks back into the room, closes the door behind him. Why? Because I cried. I wasn't supposed to cry. Emotional responses weren't part of the protocol. But you cried anyway. Because the songs were beautiful. Because they were honest. Because they show me parts of you that weren't performance or image or public persona. John sits on the bed again, facing her across the small space of the destroyed hotel room. And then you use that emotional response to deepen the relationship. Yes. And then you use the deeper relationship to gather more intelligence. Yes. So even the real moment became part of the operation. Eventually, Jesus. John lies back on the bed, stares at the ceiling, at the light fixture that probably contains additional surveillance equipment. Is there anything you didn't document? Your dreams. My dreams. You talked about your dreams sometimes, but they weren't considered actionable intelligence. What kind of dreams? Dreams about being a child. Dreams about your mother. Dreams about flying. John remembers telling Yoko about his recurring dream of flying over Liverpool, of being weightless, of escaping gravity and obligation and the constant pressure of being John Lennon. He thought she was interested because she loved him, because she wanted to understand his subconscious mind, because she cared about his deepest thoughts. Did you analyze my dreams for them? No. Dreams weren't part of my reporting requirements. But you could have. Yes. John sits up, looks at her directly. What kind of person volunteers to spy on someone's dreams? John. What kind of person gets paid to destroy someone's ability to trust love? I never intended. You never intended what? To fall in love? To get emotionally involved? To start caring about the person you were paid to monitor? I never intended for it to last this long. But it did last. It lasted 6 years. 6 years of fake love, fake support, fake intimacy designed to gather intelligence. It wasn't all fake. How much was fake? I don't know. Estimate. Maybe 60%. 60% of our relationship was performance. Maybe more. John laughs, but this time the sound is completely hollow, completely broken. Maybe more. So maybe 70%, maybe 80%, maybe 90% of everything I thought was love was actually just professional intelligence. John, the feelings developed beyond the original assignment, but they never replaced the original assignment. No. So even when you loved me, you were still spying on me. Yes. John stands, walks to the window again, looks out at Los Angeles. Somewhere down there, men in suits are reading transcripts of this conversation, taking notes on his psychological state, planning their next move in an operation designed to neutralize his political influence. What happens when I leave this room? You'll be monitored more closely. And if I go public with this information, you'll be discredited. The recordings will be edited to make you look unstable, paranoid, delusional. Your drug use will be publicized. Your drinking, your affairs, your abandonment of your son. And if I stay quiet, you'll be allowed to continue making music as long as it doesn't threaten government interests. So I can sing love songs. You can sing love songs, but not protest songs. Not anymore. John walks back to the bed, picks up the 4 recording devices, holds them in his cupped hands like poisonous insects. Turn them off, he says. I can't. Turn them off. They're not under my control anymore. Whose control are they under? People who think your voice is dangerous enough to justify destroying your life. John sets the devices back on the table, looks at Yoko one final time. In the lamplight, she looks smaller, older, like someone who has been carrying the weight of lies for so long that truth has become a foreign concept. Get out, he says quietly. John, get out of this room. Get out of my life. Get out of my sight. She stands, gathers her cigarettes, her purse, her coat. At the door, she pauses, turns back to him. John, she says, I need you to understand something. What? I never wanted it to happen this way. But it did happen this way. Yes. And you let it happen. Yes. For 6 years, you let it happen. Yes. She opens the door, steps into the hallway. The corridor is empty, but John knows that other rooms contain other recording equipment, other operations designed to monitor and control other targets who thought they were living private lives. The door closes behind her with a soft click. John sits alone in room 1205, surrounded by recording devices that are still running, still capturing his breathing, his silence, his complete psychological collapse. He thinks about calling Paul, then remembers that Paul's phones are probably monitored too. He thinks about calling his lawyers, then remembers that they have been feeding information to the government all along. He is completely alone in a room filled with people listening to his every movement. 3 hours later, in a different hotel room across the city, John Lennon sits at a small desk and writes the first authentic song he has composed in 6 years. It is about the experience of discovering that everything you believed about love was a lie designed to control you. It is about the relief of finally being alone with your thoughts, even if those thoughts are broken, even if they can never fully trust themselves again. The song will never be recorded. It will never be performed. It will remain in a notebook that John carries with him as he disappears from the music industry, from public life, from the identity that made him a target for psychological warfare. But it is real. For the first time in 6 years, something in John Lennon's life is completely, authentically real. And that reality, however damaged, however small, however private, belongs entirely to